¿Qué tal, chicos? Soy Isaac. Bueno, venimos aquí a mostrarles un poco de mis rutinas, un poco de los ejercicios. Como ven, ahorita no estoy totalmente fitness, de hecho estamos comenzando un reto de transformación. Y bueno, ya llevamos 7 minutos de HIIT cardio con Samantha Clayton. Les dejo el link en la descripción si gustan verlo. Y 15 minutos igual de HIIT cardio con Samantha Clayton, es una rutina de 45 minutos en total. Y bueno, ya calentando el cuerpo, hicimos un poco de barra y vamos a hacer un poco de pesas. Estamos en la fase 2 de una rutina, se llama vídeos del canal. Igual el link si gustan en la descripción para que lo chequen. Y vamos a darle un poquito más. Les muestro parte de esto y luego les platico un poco más de lo que ve el canal, de lo que gusto enseñarles, de lo que ustedes gustarían ver, que les explicara o que podríamos armar. Pues vamos a darle.
Or hints and kind of like try to let you know what to do, maybe what not to do on some of this. But this one, phase 2, it's a little bit more intense. The volume's going up. It's going to be 4 sets, 8 reps on all the exercises. Plus, we're adding some isolation movements on the back end of the workout. So we're going to be starting off with squat thrusters. Now, this is a full body workout. This phase is full body. So get ready to get your heart rate up, to feel a little bit winded, but also feel damn good after your workout's done. So here we go. Without further ado, let's get this started. Here we go, the first exercise. And a couple things to keep in mind when performing the squat thrusters is you're going to be squatting down in like a standard squat. So you really do want to keep a pretty comfortable positioning in your toes. So just let them flare out like you would normally, and you're going to have your knees follow your toes at all times. So when you squat down, you're really going to try as hard as you can to get your hip crease below knee. So you get a nice deep squat. And keep a vertical torso at least as much as you can. Hopefully you've been practicing on that mobility, so you'll be able to a little bit easier. So once you get in this position, as you can see that the dumbbells are placed right at the shoulders here. And it's a pretty deep squat. And this is the beginning position here, and you're in the stretched position, the stretch reflex position, where essentially you're pulling those muscles like a rubber band. They're ready to explode. They have all that energy conserved up, and so you're going to use that energy to thrust upward and explode to the top position. So this is the full extension position here. So body straight, and you got your elbows extended, and your shoulders are balancing the weight. Once you reach this position, you're going to slowly let it down, and then squat at the same time to get right back down to that beginning position and start again. So in this position, you can see, really try to push with your midfoot to the top position. Try not to get on your toes or your heel too much. So if you get on your heel too much, you're going to feel a little bit unbalanced. Same thing with the balls of your feet too. That means you're rocking too far forward, and you can put unnecessary pressure on your knees there. So really try to push that midfoot in this position, pushing upward and extending in the shoulders and elbows to reach that top position, and then go right back down to bottom position. It's a pretty energy consuming exercise. It's going to take a lot. This is full body. It's your legs, your shoulders. You know, you're kind of using everything to get this full motion down. So practice with it. Maybe do it without weights first, and then slowly work up to something you're comfortable with, then go from there. So after this, rest time is going to be about 60 to 90 seconds or so. And then after that, ready for the next set. And as we talked about before in the intro, the volume is going up. So it's going to be 4 sets rather than 3. So making it a little bit more difficult for you guys. But that's what it's all about, right? Okay, now I'm going to catch my breath. Rest times. I'm going to flex while I do it. Keep the blood flowing, you know. And then go on to the next set. We just got done with squat thrusters, and now we're moving on to commando rows. Now this is a little bit more of a back intensive exercise, but you'll probably feel it more in your core, because what's going to happen in this exercise is you're going to actually have to keep a plank position. You're starting in the push-up position, and you're going to keep your feet very wide. The wider your feet, the more stable you're going to be. As we discussed in the prior videos, having a good base of support is going to stabilize you through a lot of motions, and this is no exception in this one. So you want a really wide stance, and you're going to keep the dumbbells in your hands just about shoulder width there. So you're going to feel very stable. But in that position, you're going to row one dumbbell up, back down, and then alternate between each side. So each time you row, it's going to stress the core. It's going to have to balance you because it's being thrown off, and it's going to be in a position of instability there. So it's going to really have to engage. And much like we were saying in the previous videos, whenever you're doing a single arm row, you don't want to turn your body with the weight. You really want to keep that chunk facing forward at all times so you really can engage the lats properly. The floor press, that is what we're doing on the floor, because we're going to be doing this exercise right from this position. Well, maybe not right from this position, but something very similar. And the floor press, if you're not familiar with it, it is essentially like a bench press. It's actually the beginning evolution of the bench press. So the floor press pretty much started it all. And what you're going to be doing, as the name explains, is lying on the floor. And once you get in the lying position, you're going to keep your legs straight out in front of you, so they're flat. So there's no kind of pressing in the legs, there's no hip motion. It's pretty much just all upper body. And what you want to do is once you get in the position, the back of your upper arm is going to be placed right on the floor. So that's kind of the starting position with your upper and lower arm at the 90-degree angle there. And you're pressing just like a normal press, but the differences between a floor press and a regular bench press is that it's limiting your range of motion. It's really only working on the pretty much the back end of a bench press. So the top position there, it's only really going from this position to the top. Now this is strengthening you in that position. So let's say you're struggling in a bench press, going with heavy weight from the bottom position to about halfway up. So usually that can happen. You can kind of get that weight about halfway up and you kind of struggle the latter half of that motion. So the floor press thankfully is introduced then to strengthen you in that latter half of that motion, with the triceps, the chest, and the front delts really involved in that position there. So it strengthens you and gets you better at the bench press. So these are pretty much very good to introduce if you're struggling in that range of motion there. But they're also good in general just to kind of switch things up a little bit. So we're going to try these out and see how they feel here. And sometimes can be difficult getting the weight in the position. So what you're going to be doing is putting the dumbbells just like this. And when you lay back, you're going to be using your elbows kind of to leverage them back. So you can kind of here, and you can just lie straight back. This should go right in position. So now the back of the arms are in place. You can tell, just like in a bench press, the elbows are about a 45-degree angle to your torso there. And then you want everything flat on the ground, and just be pressing straight up into position and slightly together. So down nice and slow, and then press in an explosive manner. So now you gotta be careful when you lower it down, because if you go too fast, you're gonna knock the back of your arms and it's not gonna feel so good. So make sure it's nice and slow and controlled, touch the back of your arms, and then press the top position there. Make sure the shoulders are depressed, so you don't wanna be shrugging them up like this, you wanna keep them down and back, and then press. So you get that maximum effort in that chest. And then when you're done, pretty much the same motion, just lay them straight back down, and it's very simple. So that was the floor press. And that was the first set. We got 3 more sets. Get a little break, then we're gonna do the next 3 sets, get a nice chest workout. Oh yeah.
Cool, sir. Thanks, man. What? Wasn't me.
We are on to the last compound exercise, and it's going to be for the shoulders, and this is going to be the hang clean press. Now, if you're not familiar with the clean motion, it's essentially taking an Olympic standard barbell into position, the clean position here. Of course, we're going to be using dumbbells. You can still do it, it's just be a little bit different than you would say if you compete in the Olympics. Obviously, you wouldn't be using dumbbells, but in this case, is an excellent motion because it's going to get external rotation in the shoulders. You're going to be in that clean position. You're going to be catching it, so that way it's right into the pressing position, and then you're going to press from there. So it's in a hang position, meaning it's not coming from the floor. You're actually just keeping it right here, and then you're going to clean it, and then you're going to press it. So hang, clean, press. Now there's a few things you keep in mind when doing this exercise. There's going to be a little bit of hip extension in here. Now this is typical when you're performing it with a barbell. So the hip extension is going to create a little bit of energy and extra momentum to get the weights into place. And it's also going to be, if you're familiar with like an upright row or a high row, and me rowing the dumbbells, and as soon as it gets to about shoulder or clavicular portion, you're going to roll the wrists, and it's going to catch right in the shoulder girdle here, and then you're going to press from there. So as you can tell, the palms are facing me, and you can push back in the hips, or flexing the hips, slight bend in the knees. Once that reaches position, you're going to extend in the hips and pull it into position. So it's pretty fast motion, and once you get in this position, as you can tell, the knees are bent and the hips are flexed again, and then you're going to slightly push, press the top position, bring it down, and then back down to bottom position, push the hips back, slight knee, bend in the knees, explode, catch, press. you can tell the elbows are running high in this position. So if you want to practice that, that's a high row. So you're pushing your hips back, flexing in the hips, also a little bit in the knees, and then going into that full extension. So it's a quick motion, but in this case, when you do that, you're flipping your wrist so that way you catch it right to your shoulders here, and then pressing up from there. So that is the hang clean press with dumbbells. A little break, and then we're going to be doing the working sets, which is going to be 4 sets of 8 repetitions. And I guarantee when you try these out, it is going to be one of your favorite shoulder exercises because it really makes them work. But you do want to be careful with them. Take it light, get the motion down first, feel comfortable with it because it is a little technical. And since it is dumbbells, obviously your arms are working independently from each other. It's going to feel a little bit more unstable, so just kind of get the motions down, keep it light, get that nice wrist flip, make sure you feel comfortable with it, the elbows high and catching, and then the press from there. But once you get it down, you're going to love them. So we are on to the isolation work, and the first one is going to be the skull crushers. I'm sure everyone is very familiar with the skull crusher. It's not a rare exercise. It's definitely going to be isolating and working on the triceps. Now this one, it is going to be dumbbells, so it makes it a little bit different, maybe a little bit more difficult, and maybe a little bit more easy depending on kind of what you're doing with. Sometimes when you're using just a bar, either a straight bar or like an easy curl bar, that position can be difficult because your wrists are going to be forced to be turned all the way outward. With the dumbbells, you can keep them in a little bit more of a comfortable position, so kind of have it in a neutral position where the palms face each other, and then as you press up, you can add a little bit of extra motion, like a rotation in there, or you can keep it in kind of that hammer position there and go straight up and straight down. Now since they are working independently from each other, it's going to be a little bit different as far as your stability goes, but that's good, right? Because you're working a little bit harder in this exercise. So this one is really just focusing on elbow extension and coming all the way down. You flex the elbows, it's going to get that nice stretch in the triceps. And the farther down you go, the more you're going to feel that stretch. And it's predominantly we working kind of on the long head of the tricep there, although all 3 heads of the tricep are going to be working. So here we go. We're going to be doing this. We're going to be just lying flat on a bench. Pressing up the top position. Now this is the starting position here. So as you can tell, it's just about shoulder width, and what you're going to be doing is bringing the dumbbells right down beside your ears. Now you can move them slightly back too, depending on how your elbows feel. So sometimes when you bring them here, it's going to feel like there's a pinch in your elbow. So if you kind of adjust them back a little bit, you can relieve that slightly, or even slightly flare your elbows out, depending on what you're dealing with. And once you get in that position, you can extend contraction. But with the supinating, if you're not familiar with supination, is just turning the palms upward. Now, supination is a very important component of a bicep movement. So there is, of course, a main component of the arm flexion, which is going to work the biceps, but supinating too is really going to engage the biceps as well. So pairing those two up is very important to get a really good workout for the biceps and a good pump too, because that's what we're all about, right? So I'm going to grab the dumbbells here. Not going to go too heavy. You want to make sure they're comfortable enough to keep that proper positioning. And what I mean by that is when you're curling, you don't want to lift your elbows up too high, and you don't want to swing them too much either. So you want to keep the elbows usually at a pretty stable position, pretty much right at your side there. So as you flex in the elbows, you can supinate at the same time. And as you can see, it engages the biceps pretty well there. Keep a nice fluid motion on the way up, nice squeeze, and then nice slow motion on the way down for that eccentric contraction and control there. Excellent exercise to really isolate those biceps. Now, of course, as I'm sure you know or are aware of, the triceps, it is a larger muscle.